My name is Hannah Anderson. I work with Whidbey Conservation District. I'm our education and outreach person. And having conversations like this are really why I'm in the role I'm in. I love connecting folks with the things that they need to thrive and feel supported, especially with farming or with small business ventures on the island. And I think that the way to really find support and belonging here is to be open about where we're at, kind of things that we need, questions that we may have. So today I'm going to invite you to sort of deal away with this idea of being embarrassing or cringy with whatever sort of question or information you've come to share or receive today. So in a second, we're going to go down the line and introduce our fantastic panelists today. But today is focused for anyone who has just an idea, the beginnings of an idea for a small business or venture they want to add into their business, or someone who already has a fully fleshed out idea and plan and just wants to kind of put the final dot on that plan. So if you're wondering if you're in the right place, I think you are. There's going to be something for everyone today. And also this will be a collaboration again. So that piece about do not fear having an embarrassing question. We want to really facilitate a conversation between experts of Whidbey Island. Even if it's your first year, I would say that puts you in the category of expert because it is hard to get going here. And yourselves. So why don't we just introduce ourselves? Sammy, I want to shout out to Sammy from Goosefoot. This would not be possible without Sammy's marvelous work and support. If you'd like to introduce yourself.
Yeah, so hi, I'm Sammy. I'm the events and education coordinator at Goosefoot. So I teach a lot of our business workshops, but for Hannah. Goosefoot also does a free Whidbey Island farm stand brochure. So if you're thinking about opening a farm stand, feel free to either come talk to me or visit whidbeyfarmstands.com. There's an application button right at the bottom. It's completely free. So just like to promote everybody.
Thank you. And let's go down the line. So I'll start here with Shannon.
I'm Shannon Bly. I'm the executive director of Whidbey Island Growing. And what else? Do we have a question?
Well, let's do that. Yeah. Okay. So, what's your venture? Where do you work? And maybe how long have you been established on Whidbey?
So Whidbey Island Growing, if you don't know what that is yet, it's a co-op on the island. We have a food hub, storage facilities, and place-based marketing program. And I'm from Oak Harbor, so I've been on the island all the time.
Right.
My name is Elizabeth K. Smith. I'm from Case Farm, which is on North Whidbey, just Oak Harbor. I'm also on the farmers market board that operates the Cooperative and Oak Harbor farmers markets. And also born and raised, Case Farm has been in operation for 127 years this year, so I'm fifth generation, which is different probably than most folks in the room. But I also had to choose to want to continue doing this. So
Elizabeth, what's your last name again?
Case Smith, it's hyphenated. C-S-E hyphenated.
Stephen Williams, Foxtail Farm. We're up in Freeland, right off of Bush Point Road. We're a certified organic vegetable farm. We do a little bit of fruit and flowers along with that too. Not a fifth generation farmer. I'm a first generation, but a few generations removed from my family who used to farm back in North Carolina, growing primarily tobacco. But that, was 80 years ago, basically. And I've lived on Whidbey full time since 2014, and this is our 10th year in this.
My name is Contreras, and Rowdy's Frog Farm.
And this will be my second year on Whidbey and a rookie year as a farmer. I won't farm. And pretty much, yeah, I'm from Northern California, and I kind of grew up as my dad being a ranch hand on a big, huge commercial ranch, and we lived on site. It was kind of one of those, I grew up with agriculture, walked away from it, never wanted to do anything to do with it, and then it kind of came full circle.
I'm Kirsten Rowdy. This is my almost 5th year on Whidbey. I grew up in Arizona, so totally different climate. My first job ever was on a farm. I was the first person in my family ever to farm. I'm from a line of like barbers and opera singers, so totally not this. And have bopped around in different support roles with farming and advocacy roles with farming, as well as direct farm other people's farms. But this is my first year as well establishing my own, which is wrapping up.
Awesome, thank you so much. Another element to our intro questions I want to just get a read on is where you bring your product to sell. So we'll do this by show of hands. So, and show of hands if you use a farm stand. Great. Show of hands if you do wholesale. And show of hands if you use an online platform as well. Wow. Okay. So show of hands if you raised your hand for all of those. So yeah, today we want to open some avenues to where you can take your products or where there is a market on Whidbey, and just the potential for growing your capacity, following where your bandwidth is. I think one of the most integral things to know when getting into a business venture is just what your capacity is. So we will sort of hit that tone a little bit today. I want to get to know the room a little bit better since this will be a conversation. So can we go down the line, share your name and what brings you here? And you can share business you're working on, where you're located, up to you.
Here, Brian here is partner of Elizabeth with Ace Farm side. I was the former program manager for growing veterans out here in I also helped a little bit planning of these two events. And yeah, I also had a little small farm that I was growing at Diva 2 years, more 1 year, a little less 7 years, managing Green Bank Farm, and I'm also trying to commute. And there's too much. So I ended up closing my incubator there, which was Glacial 12.
Hi everybody, Sandy Chanish. I live in Freeland and I'm just about to retire in a month. And I have a prior life and I'm starting to think of potential small business, maybe just with the farmers market. So not looking for a full-fledged career, just something where I could work with the community and give back to them.
Congrats on your upcoming retirement.
I'm Austin Bresnan. I'm with Huckleberry Hill Homestead. We have a permaculture farm and garden landscape. I also work with the Whidbey Compost Cooperative. It's the community awareness and connection farmers compost.
Oh, thank you. We need that.
I'm John Burks. I have Kettle's Edge Farm located just outside of Cooperative. It's a market garden farm, and over the years I've sold at farmers markets and now work closely with the Whidbey Outgrown.
Jennifer Carlson, and I had a market garden at South Whidbey Hill and sold at the farmers market and then carried on egg sales for the year in the farm stand there. The issue we had there was that nobody lived there, and so there was a lot of theft. Now I live on Saratoga Road and I'm restoring an old farm there and have a permitted farm stand. So I'm gonna be building that this year, and so I just wanna get it right.
Thanks for joining us. And to our friend who joined us, we're just introducing ourselves, and what brings you to the workshop today.
I'm Debbie and I have a little tiny farm, a taste of Whidbey, and I really don't know what I'm gonna do with it. I don't even know if it's really a farm, but you just here to hear what the possibilities are, I guess.
Yeah, great. Well, you're in the right place. Thanks for joining.
All right. That's for you got people out there. I'm Dana Epperson. This is my wife, Corey. We just moved to the island about a year ago, and we started a little farmstead called Flight Path Farmstead, and we're just off of Crawford Road, and we are trying to determine how to do this the right way because Corey's been doing the heavy lifting on a lot of it, still working, and trying to figure out what we're going to sell, right? Because we've got flowers, hodgepodge of everything, quail eggs, all sorts of stuff. So one word for everyone who's done it and not make the mistakes that we're going to make.
Well, wonderful. Thanks for joining us. Would you like to introduce yourself?
I'm Corey, the other half. I think that I'm just mostly trying to glean as much knowledge as I can because we bought a property with 5 greenhouses and
Wow.
and what?
So much room to grow.
Right. Well, there's a lot of weeds growing right now, but yeah, so we're just trying to figure out transitioning. It used to be a wholesale cut flower farm beforehand. And so we're trying to transition over because I don't want to do all the upkeep, keeping all the shrubs going that I don't really care about.
Yeah. Like picking your battles. Yeah.
Yes, yeah. So the capacity, talking about capacity really resonates with me.
Wonderful. Awesome. Well, actually, on that note, that's what we're going to dive into now. Oh, yes. Please.
I'm Jennifer Everett. We own a small business, Spunk's Pumpkin Seeds. And we also, I'm on the board of the Bayview Farmers Market. And I'm on the board of the Whidbey Island Conservation District. I know some of you already, but not very many. And I really wanted to, I know that one of the things that the farmers market is very interested in is supporting new farmers and getting more farmers market. So already talked to Tommy and trying to give him some connections. And so anything, I don't know that I can answer all your questions, but I can at least tell you who can answer those questions if it's not me.
Absolutely. Jennifer is a wonderful resource and person to talk to who just knows a lot of the things that are available nearby and can be scaled to like.
Yeah, we've lived here since 2000. Well, we owned since 2003, but full time since 20.
Yeah. Now we'll dive into more capacity. So, I want to talk about routines and schedules and rhythms of work that have helped you or supported you. So there's a couple of ways to sort of approach this question. Talk about practicality, like, a Google Calendar has really helped me figure out my harvest days and my planting schedule. Or it could be this philosophy for taking on what I know I can hold and letting go of what I don't need has really worked for me this year. Or also you can share experience of like, something really fell apart and you learned the hard way, like, okay, how do I adjust my schedule so that I don't burn out? And maybe I think that Whidbey and growing on Whidbey and having a venture on Whidbey is interesting, where it seems like burnout is really near in the periphery all the time. At least this is what I hear from my friends who are farming. So yeah, feel free to share to your comfortability level, and we'll do a popcorn style. Ready?
I can speak to that a little. Like I said in my intro, I feel that my experience is maybe not quite as relatable as a lot of the folks, right? But I will say that as far as capacity is concerned, definitely over. massively over. My father passed a few years ago, and we've got way too many ogres in the fire, whatever that saying is. There's too many things happening on the farm, and we're having to figure out what we can do. So there's not a lot of focus right now. It's trying to regain that focus. There's, you know, it's been really educational partnering with Garrett because he's kind of like a beginning farmer, right? He went through the Viva Practicum. He comes from an agricultural background, but not necessarily like a farming family like I am. And while there's a lot of resources that I have that I recognize are very hard for folks to obtain, like land, for example, there's a lot of benefit to being a beginner also, right? The number of things that I have learned about where it actually kind of makes me a little bit angry that I didn't know about these things because there's so much a farmer of my place, right? Like I'm the 5th generation, like I know that land really, really well. But as far as like new techniques, new like whole like farming philosophy approaches, like I have a lot less exposure to that, or I have in the past have had a lot less exposure to that. And so that has definitely been an eye-opening experience as far as like just that there are so many different ways, right? Like I do know that it doesn't matter how many times you've done something, right? You could have grown tomato starts for 20 years and they come out perfectly every year and people flock to you to buy them. And then one year they just don't do well and you have no idea why. You don't know what you did differently. Doesn't matter. Like it just didn't do well. And then the next year it's fine. And like maybe you never figure out what went wrong, right? So like, you know, especially when you're starting something very overwhelmed by things and like you're gonna eventually like recognize patterns. And then something's gonna happen and it's all gonna like feel like it's falling apart, but it isn't always. So just like take that information with you when you're like feeling really overwhelmed. And then one of my favorite farming jokes is basically about burnout. And one friend says to another, how are you feeling? And they're like, I'm just gonna quit, throw it all away, run away from home. And they're like, and the answer is, well, do you really feel that way, or is it just August?
Oh, thank you so much for sharing.
I guess maybe like coattail off of that in that I went to the Viva Practicum as well. Tommy went to the Organic Farm School, which is here on the island for those of you who don't know. Viva's in Skagit Valley, they also have a county location. And both of them are farmer training programs. So it's not like a college. Viva has had a connection with other colleges that allow for like students there to get credit, but you don't have to be a college student. They're independent organizations that are trying to put technical and business skills into the hands of beginning farmers. And for folks who didn't come from farming backgrounds, that's an incredible gift. So in terms of like building systems and capacity before you jump into your first year, I think both of us would credit those experiences in the farmer training programs with technical field like skill building. But for me, the bigger reason I went was like business skill building, where I worked in the field long enough that I felt I had reasonable skills to jump in and do it, but I didn't feel that on the business end, and especially with like bookkeeping stuff. And it's very particular with farming, and there's a lot of complexity to it. Having a resource in your back pocket that goes even beyond the time of like your tenure at school, there's a support system for you like forever after that. It's really, really helpful. So I think I would credit, we didn't do it perfectly or maybe even well this year with organizations. There's like so much that will change next year, but we did at least have some bearings going into it because of those organizations.
Shout out to there's some great programs here that can really just fit the niche that you're in. Just practically speaking, is there something that you're taking away from this first year that you'll hold on to for schedule making next year?
There's a lot to let go of.
That's helpful too.
I mean, I kind of jokingly say that this was the gunslinger season.
Yeah.
Because we shot so much from the hip. I mean, it was, I did go to the organic farm school and it was great. There was a lot of documentation. Everybody had their turn. Everybody would do their, the work. But then once we got our own farm, I mean, it was kind of one of those like, it all kind of just went out the door. I mean, because now you're doing it all yourself. You don't have all those helping hands. So we're definitely still in the learning curve on that. Right now it's just doing the after action review and seeing what worked, what didn't, and just dialing it in.
We found it really like challenging to write down the things we were failing at during the season. But we wanted to be documenting that as much as the successes to aid with doing things better next season. And so, if there's one bit of advice, like, so I had like a paper and pen with me sometimes, and that felt like it took too long. We just had too much going on. At the end of the day, trying to like document it in like our Gmail files and stuff, it just didn't happen. Somebody recently was like, why don't you just pull out your phone and like do a voice note? And I was like, why didn't I think of that all season? I should have been doing that, but some simple way to just like, man, this worked and it was gorgeous, and this is how we accomplished that. I'm noting it, or this really tanked. And here's what we remember of like the process that got us there. Now we need to go back to the drawing board and figure out how to know this from bad times.
Foxtail Farm follows organic protocols, so I'm sure your record keeping and scheduling will be a little bit different. Speak to that.
I mean, I don't know if it's different, but it does hold you accountable.
Yeah.
And it forces you to be probably a little more thoughtful than I would generally be. I'm a little more informal and loosey-goosey, but having to be inspected every year and things like that does, in a good way, make you much more structured so that if you do have a failure or something like that, you can learn from it and pinpoint a little easier because you are keeping these decent planting logs and harvest logs and tracking your sales and things like that. And farming isn't that different from any other kind of business, except you're doing everything. You have to be a amateur plumber and electrician and just a mechanic and everything else. So in that regard, it's different, but from a business standpoint, it's kind of the same. You have to figure out what works and what sells and sort of double down on the things that are working and learn from the things that don't sell or aren't necessarily adapted to growing in this particular region and get rid of those because we have 10 acres, which for me is a lot of space, but even that can seem finite at some point in time if you're just wasting field space on stuff that probably isn't going to make you too much money. And so being certified organic forces me to look a little bit deeper and a little bit harder at those things from year to year. And I'm 10 years into this. I also did the farm school a million years ago, 13 years ago. So it's changed quite a lot. Yeah, but I did have some foundational stuff that got me going. And I agree the business side is sort of the thing that I gained a lot from. If you've ever gardened, like farming is just like gardening at a slightly bigger scale. And the great thing about growing annual vegetables is that we always do successions. We plant successions 6 or 8 times a year. So if one screws up or it doesn't germinate or it gets eaten by slugs or something like that, you always have an opportunity to plant something else. So in that regard, that's a little bit of a safety net. I screw up every day.
Yeah.
I still make mistakes and I can be hard-headed. And I get mad at myself and I'm like, I just did this. Why did you do it again? That's also part of being human. But it has gotten easier for me. I started out with like a 1-year plan a 3-year plan and a 5-year plan. And once I got to the 5-year plan, we weren't on cruise control, but I had a lot of things sort of figured out by then. We're very fortunate. I'm very grateful and privileged. We own our land, so we're able to invest in infrastructure and things like that to help us maximize our earning potential. So yeah, so having tunnels on your property at the end of the day is a great thing, because building high tunnels suck and there's nothing fun about it.
Is that what they're called, tunnels?
That's what I call it.
Okay, nice. So, okay, so.
High tunnels, hoop houses.
Yeah, it's but we have, yeah, anyway, I mean, we have like 13 of them, and I hate doing it, but yeah, so I don't know, I'm being it now, but
This is all great. Yeah, thank you. Shannon, your perspective is a little bit different because, and also very similar. You work with Whidbey and Grown, right? And so you're managing multiple schedules with multiple people, and also following the seasonality. What helps you stay on track, or how do you know that you're going off track?
Yeah. I definitely have the great experience of right now, like we have 73 producers listing on the Food Hub. So that's a lot of small businesses, very small businesses. Most of them don't have any employees. They're using friends and family or staying at that scale, or they just have a couple employees at the most, or seasonal. So they're all really small and they're all doing this. And then I'm also doing it for Whidbey Island Grown but we're in aggregation and distribution. So we're not making the food, but we are processing it through our warehouse every week. So I also have to do all the things for Whidbey Island Grown that all the small businesses have to do. So you have to make your product and you have to market it, you have to sell it, you have to, have your audience and your customers. And then you have the whole business side of, all your licenses and insurance and employee stuff, L&I, blah, 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 and your paperwork and your records, and it's so much, right? So when you're doing all of that, you're not going to hit it all the time. So I, always recognize, like, sometimes the Food Hub's not the first priority of someone, like you have to get your product there, but everybody's, doing a lot all the time and always feeling a little behind. So I get to do that with all of them, which is kind of fun. And it's kind of some of the things that I try to work on with my schedule is you have to manage yourself. So you're an employee of yourself, kind of like you created this business or whatever, and you're holding it all and you're making all the decisions, but also you're working for yourself. So you got to figure out how to manage yourself in a way where you're getting done the things that you maybe don't want to do, as well as things you do want to do, and being, able to figure out how to trick yourself into doing that, or recognizing when you're trying to get out of it. Because a lot of times staff is trying to get out of work a little bit, So you gotta, watch yourself with that. So I think that is super important and really has helped me be able to do better at the things that I'm not as good at, like paperwork.
Yeah. Oh gosh, I'd love to learn. Yeah. So in keeping with that, Kirsten, you mentioned the voice memo piece of like, oh wow, if I had thought of this during the season, like this could have been really helpful and sort of hacked that workday a little bit. Is there an aha moment that relates to what Shannon's talking about? Like, this is how I trick myself to keep on track or stay scheduled, or that comes to mind for folks on the panel?
I would say one thing about that is once you find something like that, like the voice memo, and you start doing it, then you just immediately forget all of that and move on because there's so many other things that are like unsolvable problems like that. And so I think it's really important to go back and look at where you've been.
That's great.
And like congratulate yourself because like you have a goal or you have something you achieve, you're like great, and you just move on because there's things are going so quickly. So like you didn't have some strategies before that you do now, no matter what stage you're at, and remembering that.
So maybe every year is a gunslinging year. I know I want to speak to this. I asked this question knowing I want to share an answer. Something that has helped me trick myself into keeping with the schedule I set out for myself before dopamine sort of lost its effect is I'll put on I don't know if anyone in the crowd will know this, but Charlie XCX's Brat album. And if that doesn't work, it's Irish reels and jigs. And if I have something that's like, oh yeah, I want to be up and moving while this music is playing, I'll funnel that energy into the task I need to get done. And I know that sounds silly and it might be like but it works for me. Yeah.
It's a tool.
It's a tool, exactly. Yeah. Any final goes? Any Charlie XCX lovers out there?
Definitely listen to like a lot of music while we're working. I think that's like all of us know whether you're exercising or you're like doing something elbow to elbow with someone, like music lifts you up. But we've also had to, when you're working with someone else, this is a problem. When you're not, it's probably less of a problem. Be like, okay, we can't talk to each other anymore. You go to that side of the field, I go to this side of the field. Very particular delegation because we'll start talking about something and whether it's something we're sassing each other on or like really excited about, then we're talking about it forever. And so I think we hit towards the end of the season a stride with like on this day of the week, when I get off work and I arrive at the farm, he's already done this and he's staying at time and I'm on harvest and like we know what our roles are. And I think we wanted to be able to like do a lot together in the beginning because farming can be really lonely and isolating. And like part of starting our farm together was like we have somebody else in the field at all times, right? But then it can also be something that detracts from efficiency if you're not careful with how you share time. And so just like we started building a schedule for next year that includes like a lunch hour because we don't have one now. And I think a lot of farmers that aren't working for someone else, they just like go through the whole day. Like we're like sun up to sundown most days and won't realize we have anything. And next year's schedule is like we're gonna eat food at a certain time and we're gonna like leave before the sun goes down so we can talk to each other about things that are not related to the farm and sustain relationship that way. And it is like creating an outline for yourself and like holding yourself accountable to going back to it and making sure you're like taking care of all the parts of what will keep you whole and from burning out, in addition to like being on schedule with the work that gets thrown done.
Right. That's also important.
I can piggyback off of that one. Because I like grew up right at my family farm. So when I was younger and both of my parents were alive and able-bodied and my two siblings and I were all like young enough that we were still living at home. You would go out to do a project and obviously there's a lot of hands, right? And so it was we're gonna go out and we're going to do this task, right? We're gonna plant all the onions today or whatever. And because there were so many of us, it's like, well, we're like 65% done or 80% done. So we'll just finish it and be done. And over the years, as the number of people helping has declined, and at this point, it's almost always just me doing a lot of the farming. Not good at it yet, but I have at least recognized a pattern where like I have to, because I do that exact same thing. It's like, oh, it's 7 o'clock. Maybe I should have breakfast. 7 p.m. I should have breakfast. Is that like look at the task and like, do I actually have to finish this before I take a break? The work will be there if I go to the bathroom. Like if I drink some water and come back, it'll still be there, right? Like which tasks, like do you really have to do? And finish, right? Like life, limb, or eyesight kind of stuff. And like what do you really not, right? Like are those plants going to be, if you're transplanting these plants, are they going to die before tomorrow if you don't transplant them? And like maybe some of them do, right? Like maybe you worked a little bit too far ahead of yourself prepping them to go in the ground. And if you don't put them in the ground today, they might. So maybe don't work so far ahead of yourself, right? Like these little steps to like kind of like rein it back in and like the world won't end. It will be okay if you also take care of yourself in addition to all these other things. I'm not good at it. But it is a thing that is constantly being worked on.
Yep. We had a conversation with Andy and Nathaniel, whose farm is next to Stephen's farm. They're on the island, Deep Harvest. Most of you probably know they grow seeds, amongst other, like they have CSA program too. Their seeds are amazing. But they told us that like if they can give like one little bit of advice, and I think they said like maybe year 6 or 7, they had finally given themselves away to this truth, and it like relieved them of so much stress. Was that like 75% is enough? Like 75% in any given task is enough because you have so many tasks on your hand as a farmer in the course of the day, in the course of a week, month, year, that you must don't do them all 100%. And so do them while you're doing them to the best of your ability, but sometimes, and like you said, maybe something's gonna die 70%. Hopefully you've planned enough that that's not where you're at, but like the perfectly weeded bed, like I way have OCD and I have a hard time walking away from a bed that's not like immaculate. And sometimes you need to because you have more to do. And if you do too much of this, you're not gonna do enough of that. Yeah.
I agree with all of it. My wife has my wife works full time in Everett, but she works over there 4 days a week, so she's here 3 days a week, and she always has Fridays off, and she wants to be very involved with the farming stuff because she likes to get dirty and be a part of everything too. She is that way. If she's weeding something, she doesn't like to leave anything behind, and as a result, I hate to call her slow, but she is slow. And that's okay.
Efficient.
Yeah.
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 I'm slow too.
and that's okay, but there are a million other things that need to be done. And so it is a hard thing to do because when you're doing things organically and you can't just go spray a bunch of stuff, things can get out of hand pretty quickly. So yeah, we've learned to call it at a certain point, but like, okay, that is good enough. We do the same thing, like when we're planting things, we know we're going to lose a certain percentage of whatever we're planting to whatever, flea beetles or slugs or rabbits or stuff like that. So at the beginning, I would plant just enough to make sure I had enough to harvest, but I'd lose 20% of it sometimes. And so now we plant more, knowing that we're going to have to sacrifice a few to the creatures out there in the wildlife, and that's totally fine too. And I think if you sell like a bunch of kale or something like that, and there's some holes in it, I think it's a pretty good indication that doing things organically, and people shouldn't be so upset about seeing a couple holes in a leaf of lettuce or something like that, because that means you're not killing any insects and stuff like that too. But yeah. But all these things I learned over the years, and it's very defeating at first if you spend all your time just trying to tackle this one task and there's a million other things piling up. And yeah, you got to make money and do all these things at the same time. So it can be certainly overwhelming. To circle back to the note-taking thing real quick, I've started doing this weird thing where I have 2 sets of like working notes going. One is in real time and one is like what I'm going to do in the future, like during the off season. So I do use the notes app on my phone. That's for long-term stuff. But if I have a follow-up or something in the field that I need to address, right away, I started texting myself, which is so stupid. But then I always have the little red thing on there, and I'll text myself, and then 15 minutes later, forget what I had even talked about. I'll look at my phone, like, who texted me? And it's, and it does keep me sort of, keeps me on track. So at least I can always just sort of see, okay, yeah, I need to look at that
Yeah.
right away. And I don't know, somebody was talking about working together and things like that. The first couple of years that we were in business, it was pretty much just me, which it is with a lot of business, whether it's farming or anything else. And over the course of the years, we've been fortunate to add staff and to share the workload, and that has its pros and cons. My payroll is sky high, but we have good employees, and I'm glad we're able to support that, and it does sort of level out the amount of work that has to go on. But I've learned that I don't necessarily love working with people the entire workday. So creating, like, there are certain things that we compartmentalize. I do certain things all the time, and then the crew can do other things either together or apart. It just depends on what is the most efficient way to get things done. And we always plant together, transplanting. I do all the direct seeding. I do all the greenhouse work. I don't do all the seeding in the greenhouse, but I do all the managing of the greenhouse. And then harvest days are very big too. We harvest many times a week now, and so it's all hands on deck. And now my farm stand, that's the only way we're making money now is through the farm stand. So somebody always has to staff that. So between the three main things, planting, harvesting, and manning the farm stand, everything else is very important, but it's a little bit more flexible in how we do things. And if there's a fire somewhere, metaphorical fire, then we can spend some time on that. And the workflow and the workload ebbs and flows throughout the course of the season. July and August are crazy, just with everything. It's on Whidbey, the population swells, and it's the longest days of the year, the warmest days of the year. So everything is growing, including the weeds. So just trying to keep a handle on everything and keep our head above water is very important.
Yeah, thank you. That was great insight. And this is what I'm talking about. It's the thing that is so silly, but just works exactly for you. It's like that text message to myself. On that point, I have, I'm going to share for this farmer who isn't here. But my friend who operates a farm on the Olympic Peninsula has started doing Jensen hours. That's their name. And that's like, I think Friday afternoon. It's an afternoon on a day during the week where they're working on their own on the farm. So for those of you who work in a partnership or have a farm crew or work with other people in your business, that hour is very sacred to them, or those hours, and it's their chance to like be with their thoughts, take a look at what's going on without any outside influence, and also just open creativity. Like, I want to work on this project because I want to. So even that is sort of a rest within your work, I think helps break up that burnout cycle a little bit. Please feel free to chime in with anything else related to that as we go on. But I want to touch on some of these other questions because they're quite great, Sammy. Thank you for putting these together. So a number of you use different distribution methods. One of you is a distribution method. Yes. So this question is, how did you figure out what distribution worked best for you and your food or your product? And tied into this could be, how did you get started? So the first place that you brought something to sell, what did that look like? Where was it? And how has that evolved to where you are right now?
I'll get first.
Okay.
Well, during my time at the organic farm school, part of the business side of it was writing a business plan. And at the time, I didn't know how important that process was going to be. So I encourage everybody, if you've never done a business plan, even if it ends up being completely different, and what you ultimately end up doing. Good exercise to do. It makes you think long term how you're going to generate revenue and what that's going to look like and things like that. But I've written a couple business plans, and the one that I settled on, my original thought was I was just going to do everything wholesale because I didn't want to have to do farmers markets and things like that on one of my weekends or whatever. I did the exact opposite of that in practice. So when we first started, we started selling here at the baby farmers market, and the baby market is really, really good. It was always, this was the first year we haven't been there, but we did it the past decade. And it was how we built our business. And it was the way that we got in front of people so that people got to know us and they were talking directly to me or my wife. And we were able to engage with people so that they could get to know us and we could get to know some names and faces and build some trust and build repeat business. And over the course of the years, our revenue increased and year over year, and we were able to expand. But living on Whidbey, and it's such a small place, like, literally population wise and geographically, building those relationships face to face, I think is very important. And it's easier said than done, I think. But the only reason I'm where I'm at today is because we did invest so much time in being at the farmers market. And it's like the rawest form of capitalism. You're there, same time, same place every Saturday for 26 weeks or whatever it is. And if you're consistent with that and you bring good product, no matter what it is, people, generally speaking, will recognize that. And we're particularly lucky that Whidbey is such a supportive community in general. Most people that live here, because of how we're just sort of organized, we don't have a ton of chain stores or restaurants or grocery stores or anything like that. People want to support all the local businesses as much as possible. And I found that to be particularly true on the farming side. So that part is very encouraging. That allowed us to be able to transition away from the farmers market, and now we just do our farm stand full time. But I don't think if we were not able to have that face-to-face interaction with folks, then I'm not sure we'd be where we are now. And we still work on the weekends, but if anybody who's ever done a farmers market knows how it's a big, long, like literal heavy lifting day. And the weather could be shit one day, and if it is, then most of the people will decide not to come, and that can be very defeating. And but still, there are way more pros than cons than not doing the market. And I think from just a jumping off point, even if you just do a couple years or whatever, it's a really good way to get your name out there and get it established. And then from that point on, as your business model adapts, you can change a little bit more on the fly, and your name's out there, and the hope is that people will follow you wherever you end up going.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, I would add to that. As much as I was born into farming, I was also actually born into farmers markets. My parents they were some of the founding group of the Cooperative Farmers Market, which happened before I was born. So I've been doing them my whole life, and I know that for farmers, they can be a very contentious thing for exactly that reason, like the buildup, right? Especially when you're starting out, you don't have like a lot of good cold storage, you don't have a lot of that good like systems and routines put in place, like the run up to the day. Harvest earlier, which things do I have to harvest really close to the day, et cetera, et cetera. And then just like repeat is running a marathon, right? Like farming's already hard, and it's like running a marathon every single year. But farmers markets are still hands down my absolute personal favorite way to like get my farm product out there. Like I personally think the farming is way too hard to not actually talk to the people who are excited about the food that I'm growing, right? Like, it's like being able to, like, it's my customer. And this nice little man who found out that I studied abroad in Spain. He and his wife used to go to Spain every year. And so when I was growing playground like peppers one year, I like saved some for him because he didn't come to market first thing in the morning. So I like realized that I held him back. And then he was so happy that I had done this for him. The next year, literally the next season, he like came to the booth because he's one of the regulars, and he had gone to Spain sometime over the winter, and he brought me some like fresh like Spanish paprika, right? Like it's those foundational relationships that I think like you highlighted are so with the island in a way, right? Like I don't think that if I was going to a big city market that I would be inclined to do that, or that he would, right? And so like that's the kind of relationships that you form. That's how people come to support you, right? And like be invested in what you are doing, right? Like sometimes, especially on the north end of the island, we have such a high population turnover with the military. It can be really challenging operating farmers markets up there because folks are literally coming from all over the world, right? Like if they got stationed in Sicily and they went to the farmers markets there, they're gonna be disappointed. There's nothing we can do. There's nothing we can do, right? And so that being at the farmers market, if you can get them in the door, it gives you that, like the door, right? It gives you the open door to start those conversations with people. And those conversations can be like, why does this let us have a hole in it? It's like, well, because there's bugs outside, right? Like they taste things just like us. We once actually, no joke, successfully sold carrots that had a whole bunch of worms in them by literally just putting on the price tag not vegan carrots. And people were so like charmed with this, so they bought them, right? Like, this is the stuff that the farmer needs, right? And you can sell it to people, but and so being able to have those conversations is good from a building point of view for sure. And then also, if you're getting started and you want to not necessarily do that heavy lifting forever, the farmers markets are a really great way to start because you're doing consumer research. Right? You're like, I think these things are so cool. And then you grow a whole bunch of it and you take it to the market and people are like, why is that? And it's good that you like it because you're taking it all home, right? So like you get to interface with the actual people who will actually be buying your product, hopefully, right? Like that's the goal. And or in theory, that's one of the goals. And so you get to find out what they like. You get to find out when they want it. Without fail, every year. The only time people actually ask you for lettuce is August. Every year. And every year I'm like, I'm sorry, lettuce doesn't really like August. Like that's just, do you like to do these other things? So it helps you, and like maybe you're the person who like fully cracks the code and you grow nothing but lettuce all through August and then everyone is like happy. Like whatever it is, you get to build your support system and you also get to build your like knowledge base for like what, everybody has their pet projects, but like what pays the bills, right? Like what is it people are looking for? What can you produce? Like the island has the craziest microclimates, right? So like any advice you get from anyone is always with like that's things, but like you have to take it with like a lot of like asterisks, right? Yeah. Because literally even what your neighbor is doing or what you're doing in this corner of your property versus this corner of your property could be totally different. And it's only experience that will teach you that. But once you figure that out, if you know the direction that people want you to go, that becomes a lot easier, right? And so how else are you going to do that really is the question if you don't have that exposure. And maybe you don't sell at the farmer's market, but maybe you're like a frequent shopper of the farmer's market, right? Because you'll hear those conversations. Our markets are usually small enough and not so crazy busy that you can like just observe the conversations that are happening, which is also another way to figure that out.
I love the pepper little note.
Yeah, he's real cute.
That's cute, yeah.
Well, I guess I want to start off with just giving Community Bay Blues a shout out because that's who we are farming on. They have an incubator pot that we lease from them. And I don't think we would have been able to farm financially this year. So that kind of gave us the access to their farm store to, for a distribution outlet. And so I want to say, I kind of played it safe. I think we did a lot of risk for just starting off on our first year. So I think that just playing it safe that way, that we had a guaranteed, outlet there. And then, of course, Kirsten wanted to do a CSA. I wasn't too sure about it. So we compromised on the number, on how many members we wanted to take on. And of course, it was a member CSA just to kind of test the waters.
Which doesn't sound like a lot, but it's a lot.
That's a lot.
Your first year.
And then we do a bi-weekly at Tilt Market. And again, just because we just didn't know. And if you don't know, you don't know. I did all the formulas, I did all the crop planning, the bed yields, but I just didn't know like how much that was going to be at the end, how much product I was going to have. And we even had started conversations with the WIG, and it's just, again, I kind of backpedaled on that one because I just didn't, yeah.
It was recognizing capacity.
Yeah.
Exactly. But I think, it's just having that experience under your belt, getting that muscle memory, and then like we can almost say that we are ready for bigger things next year.
Yeah.
It's just that initial, what you're, I guess, comfortable with.
Yeah. And I think like a good example of like growing into a system that works better for you is that like, yes, I was the one that wanted to do the CSA this year. I like that. But like we had with the CSA, there's a level of stress to that because people have prepaid. That also like afforded things at the beginning of the season for us that we otherwise couldn't have done financially. So that was part of the draw to it. But it is another face-to-face, like the market opportunity to see the same people every week and build a relationship with them. I'm really glad. And now we have like 10 people who are like very loyal to our farm and who we like get to have recipe conversations with and like, how did you use that this week? And it also was a form of accountability for us because nothing else, we had to have this much food for these people and a variety every single week. And it also opened the door for us to get to do just like one thing this year that was collaborative because ethos wise, that's like very big for us. We want what we do to be in community. And some of that's about alleviating isolation as a farmer, and some of that's just like loving people and like loving connection. And so our CSA involved Community Bay Blues, who we lease from. Every week, people got within their box vegetables, cut flowers, blueberries from Community Bay Blues, eggs from Community Bay Blues, and bread from a local baker, Hummingbird Bakery. And so as much as we could, it was like a full box of like well-rounded food options. We would have loved to do protein, but that was too much for the first year. And so that was like, it was a creative opportunity for us. We're like, this is a risk, but like, I feel like it paid off. And now for next year, what we recognize is doing a CSA alongside going to market feels overwhelming. And so we're going to shift to going to market instead of bi-weekly, every week. And we're going to big you bigger. And then we're going to do a fall CSA and prep for that on the other side of market time so that we can extend the season over and still hold those like close intimate relationships with
I love that we get to see you at this moment in time in between your first year and you're getting prepared for your second year. It's like, following the thread of where your passion is pulled to, like where your market is and the people you're trying to reach. And now you're sort of fitting your schedule around that. Shannon, I'm wondering, can you share some insight for people who might be thinking about joining WIG or just your thoughts on this topic at all as well?
Yeah, I think all of our producers have multiple sales outlets and we're one of them. So that's, unless you're get to a certain stage where you can just do a farm stand, you're gonna have a bunch of sales outlets and you're gonna have to manage your inventory between them. I think that is probably more challenging for vegetable farming than some of the other value added or whatever. So the food hub, everything's pre-ordered. So you do know what you need to harvest and bring to us. But you also have to guess that ahead of time. So there is that, you know, what am I gonna have next Thursday and how many? So I do think a lot of our producers probably are on the side of safety on that. So another reason why we need multiple sales outlets, but also I think the food hub is a partnership. So you are kind of taking on this project with us. This becomes a sales outlet of yours that you're using. And so you'll, the amount of sort of marketing and effort that you put into it can grow your sales higher on there. We also have access to a lot of data from having so many producers on there over the years with our big, crazy expensive software that we use locally in the marketplace. But it does have a lot of that kind of data to look at what is selling and kind of trends over time, and also trends in the winter market. So I get a lot of vegetables from Skagit in the winter through the Puget Sound Food Hub, which is a wholesale food hub only, which we were going to be a wholesale food hub to start off with. And we had planned that in early spring of 2020. And then like 2 weeks later, there was no wholesale market at all. So that's how we became a retail focused, consumer focused food hub. We do some wholesale sales now as well, and transport services. Within transporting goods around, if you want to be at that stage, there's just all kinds of stuff going on with the little trucks. Like there's any trucks off the island coming to the island, people put stuff on there and they'll take it around, and everybody kind of is doing that. So that's kind of a newer area that we've been kind of pursuing the last couple years. But the actual food hub, how we have it set up right now, is really flexible. If you want to we have super, super small producers who are, you know, maybe just have like sunflowers and 3 bunches of kale, and they can put that on there, or you can, you know, be at a higher sales growth or sales goal if you want, whatever your business goals are. The food hub is just kind of another way to do that. If it, you know, fits within those goals, and everybody has kind of their own, all 73 of those producers, and there are some that are seasonal that aren't on there right now. So all those guys, everybody has, you know, their own thing that they're doing, and it's really fun to work with all of them, and get to know them and stuff like that. So it's fun.
Yeah. Sounds like collaboration, finding the people that you work well with or what to work with, is a really good driving force with finding your distribution sweet spot. What can anyone share about the process of realizing that the avenue you've chosen, the distribution method that you're currently in, isn't working, and how you have pivoted to an example?
Well, I guess for us, we love the CSA model. Like, I mean, I became a believer. Even though at first I wasn't.
Some days.
But I still think that because of, I guess, the accountability that you do have to perform now for each of those members, at the peak season, it was a little stressful. So
It was really stressful.
I think that we've talked about it and have had to pivot maybe our idea to do the fall CSA so that we still are able to do whatever we need to do for the peak season and whatever outlet we have, and then still be able to have, that intimate CSA membership.
Which also keeps, like you just said, collaboration, keeps our collaborations going.
Yeah,
And actually, like, then we'll have a little bit more time even to expand it, hopefully. Yeah.
I hate to say everything has worked out for me because there obviously been bumps in the road, but I've never done CSA, and again, Deep Harvest they are my literal next door neighbors. They're my closest friends in many, many ways, but we have two completely different business models. They would do the exact same thing going completely different ways. And part of that was by design because we never wanted to step on each other's toes, and we wanted to both be able to pay the bills, doing what we love to do, things, but also stay friends and neighbors at the same time. It's often easier said than done, but it has, knock on wood, it's worked out. And talking to Nathaniel before I came over here about something else, and we collaboratively we have bought some equipment together, some things that we don't use all the time that it just made sense to pull our money together and things like that. But anyway, I always did the farmers market, but I always knew that I wanted to do more farm stand stuff. I always had a dream of selling everything that we grow from the property if that was ever going to be a possibility. And so we always kind of had a hybrid model. We would always have the farm stand open in conjunction with going to the market on Saturdays, but the farm stand gave us cash flow during the middle parts of the week. Obviously, the bulk of our income was from Saturday, but we still had people shopping at the market. At the farm stands during the week, and people could fill the gaps between Saturdays if they needed a few items and they didn't want to have to go to Payless or whatever, they could do that. And that worked. And at first, we just did the market, and then we would stay open at the farm stand seasonally until like Thanksgiving, and then we kept extending that. And we've been year round with the farm stand for 4 or 5 years, probably since COVID happened. Because there was such demand for it. But again, all that stuff sort of allowed us to transition and just being flexible. But we ran into the same things, like keeping inventory is difficult. And as we approach the deep winter, January, February, March, Shannon will tell you there are very few options out there. And even though we live in a relatively mild climate, we have short days and things will just not actively grow. So we're relying on storage crops and some of the hardier greens and things like that. But if I've got it, then these guys have it, we all have it. So then we're all the market is a little bit flooded. And so again, that's where you sort of have to keep the long range plan in the back of your mind so that during the slower times or months, or it's colder and wetter, and you might not be bringing in as much income, you've offset that with your summer and things like that. So I know that's not necessarily a fail, but that's something I've had to learn in real time to make sure that I have enough money coming through the doors all the time to pay the mortgage and make payroll every week and stuff like that. So it's a juggling act, again, just like any other business would be. But with farming, you have Mother Nature and there's some curveballs. Sure.
Curveball, like a yoga ball, yeah.
One of my sales outlets is online. It's our own website. It came about from COVID specifically. We have very robust tomato plant started sales in the early part of the market season. And when COVID happened, the farmers markets were still operating, but the number of people who felt safe to come to them was like massively down, et cetera, et cetera. And so I whipped up a website with Square, because that was what we were using to process credit cards at the markets, and let people order the starts online. I would only inventory the ones ready to go each week, and people could pick them up on the farm and take them home and plant them. And I would love nothing more than for that to die. I don't like him. I don't like update it on the website. I hate almost everything about it. And fortunately, our customers still want it. So, yeah, that, I don't know if that answers that question, but you can yourself to a partner, so be careful with that. And I think that, I think one of the things that makes Whidbey unique is our isolation, right? Like it's something that is challenging, but it's also, if you let it be, it can be, right? Because if you go to the markets or if you go to the shops that are selling value added items that are produced on the island, you'll find that a lot of them are using other Whidbey products, right? And so I haven't been on Whidbey my whole life. There was a period of 10, 15 years where I was not living here and I was not really farming at that time, obviously, not on my family's farm. And I would go to markets and you would see sometimes vendors like arguing with each other, like almost fisticuffs, right? Like arguing about pricing or arguing about their spots or like whatever it is. And I have never, thankfully, personally seen anything like that at the Whidbey markets, right? Like I think people here just recognize that they have to support each other, right? Like our community is too small, the island is too small to get ahead by that kind of competition.
Yeah.
Right? So finding your community, finding like this, the people that you're gonna collaborate with also includes other farmers and producers, right? Because like my friends call me up and they're like, hey, we have this big order we need to fill and we have this many orders and then it hailed. And we literally don't have enough to fill our orders. Are you growing big collards? Like, yeah, sure. How many bunches do you need? Just so that they can get it filled, right? Like that's the kind of collaboration that you can, and that's not unique to me, right? Like that is something that you'll find up and down the island. It's being at the market and you say to a vendor like, hey, do you have this thing? And the answer isn't just no, it's no, but check over there. Right, talk to this farm, I know they're growing it, call this person, I think they have it, like, it's that kind of resource that you have available to you, you just have to figure out where it is, right, like, that's part of, don't spend all your time. Leave the farm sometimes.
We went to the Washington Tilth Conference, just the last 3 days, we got back late last night. And we were there just like to be in workshops and listen to the keynote speakers and kind of like get reinvigorated after the first season and going into the second. And it totally did that for us. Highly recommend going to that on the wood there. Wearing our Rowdy t-shirt. Thanks. And one of the most moving things that we witnessed, and which I think we left feeling like a lot of gratitude for this community. I know there's a community question coming, but kind of like I guess I know that. Is that numerous of us have mentioned farming can be very isolating, and it really so much so that when you go to a farming conference, there's a lot of conversation about like suicide prevention. And that has to do with isolation, but that also has to do with like financial weight and the irregularity of everything that you're working with, from climate to market, etc. And this was like a pretty special TILF conference. I've been to ones before, but because it was in Spokane, and it was a collaboration between TILF and their conservation district, who obviously out there works a lot with like big giant farms, way bigger than anything we could ever see on TV. We're doing a lot of grain. They're working like 6,000 acres. So it feels like a world apart from what we do, right? But there were these magical panels that happened where, I mean, we were like tearing up in the, just like feeling like so connected and empathizing with these other farmers who are focused on kind of like being cowboys of their community and leaving conventional to become regenerative on these 6,000 acres. And the biggest thing was like, it was like, so cool to hear all these technical methods they're using to become regenerative. That was great. But more than that, it was like the human connection that happened and feeling like
we're worlds apart from that kind of production. But like all of us are just people who at the end of the day want to be serving somebody and taking care of their community. We want our kids to be involved in what we do. We want like it to be healthy and like we also want to feel seen and whole. And farmers really struggle with that. And even when you have just like a small plot that you're taking care of, we are working less than 1 acre. But it is in constant turning production, right? And like that takes everything from us. It took everything this season. Like my kids up at 5 a.m. for harvest and not going home until after dark. That's a sacrifice they make too. And like every person that chooses farming as a service and like as their service to community is going to make sacrifices along the way. Building community and sustaining it is so deep. Regardless of how many acres you're working, it will consume you. It's like an infant, it will need full time. And just make sure that you make time to spend with other people. And I heard somebody put it really, really well in prepping to be a farmer. And like she's already a farmer. But Priscilla, who owns Grass Can Wave, which is a farm on the island that does soap and like some dyes and flowers and things. I had a meeting with her and a few other flower farmers a few weeks ago, and we were talking like highs and lows of the season. And Priscilla was like, honestly, guys, like I grew way less this year than I have in the past. I was nurturing relationships. That's what this year was about because I knew I needed more of them. And that's been really fruitful for her in these beautiful ways. But like as you're going into choosing to like be a production in some way beyond just like backyard gardening, if you can take the time to like invest in rooting yourself in first, that's going to make a difference in like having like sales outlets and stuff, but also just being grounded and like staying whole because it takes a lot from you.
You mentioned a term in the farming world, and I just want to make sure that everyone in the room knows what that term means.
Regenerative?
Yes, regenerative agriculture. Could you tell us about that?
It's pretty broad. Yeah. I don't know that I can answer that. But I mean, like, regenerative is like, it's not in an official category. You can't like put a stamp on something like you can with organic. It's not like a process or like structured thing yet, which is actually really beautiful. Because the like ethos of it is not just not putting bad things into the soil, but trying to heal the soil, which is like the base of all the nutritional value of anything we grow, right? And so if that thing is not whole and healed and well and like thriving, the things that we grow are like, yeah, you can grow a carrot, but like they talked about this at TILF, what's the difference between the nutritional value of this one that was grown conventionally and this one that was grown regeneratively, organically? It's massive, like crazy massive. They used an example of like, was it 250 pieces of conventional spinach, right, which have a standard lead time going from say California to Michigan to be sold because that's common in your regular grocery store. We would have to eat 250 pieces of that lettuce to equal one piece of spinach of spinach that was grown regeneratively at farm down protein.
It's just that interconnectedness, from the soil, the veggies to us, like how it just goes down the line.
It's sort of the opposite of extractive agriculture,
Yeah.
which is what was going on for so long, and now it's everything. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, I love the concept of regenerative agriculture because it hits a lot of things that we're promoting in the conservation world, and conservation districts truly got started as the result of an ecological disaster, which was the Dust Bowl in the 30s. So that's watching, almost 10 inches of topsoil like go up into the wind and go away. And it was an eye-opening moment. Like, we don't have centers of knowledge or resources for everyday farmers to go to make sure that they have not only a successful harvest, but also that their land is like made better than they found it, or is you're adding life back into the land basically. So like another common practice with regenerative agriculture is letting your fields rest in the off season, and you might plant a cover crop, which is preventing soil erosion. Is also securing lots of nutrients that the soil needs and making sure that there's lots of life in the soil, with like critters, bugs going down, making sure that it's ready to go for the next year. Anyone else want to add on to that, or you got it?
Reciprocal is a really good word.
Yeah.
To like pair with that practice, because it's right, reciprocation is, I'm not just taking something from the land, it's feeding me and I'm feeding it, and I'm as conscious of what I'm feeding it as I am of what it's feeding me. It should be a relationship like any other. It needs to be about both of you that are involved.
You're so right. One of my questions is going to be about community and sort of this reciprocal nature of working on Whidbey, which is, I don't know many other places that have a cyclical nature like this. So it's really special, but it's also has its little quirks and things that you need to know about to get connected well. So this is just, again, like practical or, you know, your odd tips for getting connected and finding folks that you help each other, they help you. Yes, kind of like making friends 101 on Whidbey Island.
I think as with not just farming, not just Whidbey Island, but like to really connect with people, you have to be willing to be vulnerable, right? Like you have to be willing to be honest about yourself, right? And who you are and what you bring to the table. Like, this is probably a more North End thing, just by nature, but I often tell people that like one of the dirtiest parts of like farming is like you either have the energy to grow the food or you have the energy to cook the food, right? So like most of us know which gas station has hot food or it's like I don't know, spend less time on social media, I guess, but so yeah, I don't know how that, I totally forgot the question already, but that's what like how it's like just to like, I mean, I sat on a panel pandemic where this women in ag panel, WC puts it on and all the extensions have these little satellites, and so I was going, and there were two other women in ag on the panel with me. I had never met either of them before. I don't think I knew anyone in the audience. I had just moved home after a pretty major life change, and I sat in front of this table. I was like, a lot of days I forget to brush my teeth before I go outside to work because I just don't, right? Like I don't have that system in place. And I don't remember it until I'm at the country store buying chicken food. And then I'm like, oh my God, I forgot to brush my teeth. And I'm talking to other humans, right? So like just like that sort of thing, like the gross, messy, like we're actually all part of this system nature of humanity is universal, right? Like when you step in a pile of manure out there, like that's what happens on farms, right? Everybody has that same experience. Like it's not something to pretend doesn't happen, I guess, right? But it's not something to pretend that it's not hard, yeah, right? Or that it's isolating, or that it's that way for everyone, right? So just to be willing to like show up at the farmer's market with your pile of carrots that are full of worms and be like, well, that's what happened this year. Here you go, everybody. This is what I have, you know, things like that. So I think our co-op is a great example of a community building something. So our, you know, farmers came together to make the co-op and the food hub. When we started, we didn't have anything of our own at all, like not even a cooler. And we, you know, slowly were able, with the help of everyone involved, to build out warehouses and have more distribution sites, have trucks if we need them.
like if our truck breaks down, we have people who will loan us their vehicle, just make sure there's some insurance on there and good to go. Like we have kind of this backup for that because everybody is working to build it together. A lot of our distribution sites still are just donated spaces that we go into and use once a week and try to be really good neighbors of. But everybody who's doing that, wants to work together, wants to do business together, and is, willing to help out, willing to take calls, be in communication over whatever. And part of that communication is letting me know that hail has ruined your crop or, mistakes. It's basically all about mistakes. That's what we're dealing with constantly with each other all the time. And so just recognizing, if someone else is making a mistake, we also make mistakes. Everybody's going around making mistakes, and the person who feels the worst about your mistake is yourself. So now you're dealing with someone who's, upset at themselves. So I try to be really encouraging about that because that's what I want when it's my turn to make a mistake. And I always say that because we work with all of our customers, so 150 to 200 customers a week. Then we have our staff, which on Fridays up to 12 people. And then we have all of our producers, which is right now like 73, and they all have to bring us their stuff so we can pack it and get it out to all of those customers within a 2-day period, basically. So throughout all of that, communication is a lot, just chaos a little bit. Most of it's going well, and then there's just problems all the time. And that's kind of what everybody there's dealing with is the problems all the time, because that's what you focus on. So being around as many people as possible who are experiencing that, so you can see that, that's how it goes. That's part of it. It's not easy. It's messy, and everybody has to deal, that mess can affect other people. We're all dealing with that, but we want to work together and do business together ultimately. So we're going to do what we have to do within that to keep it going. That's, I think, basically a community project in action.
I'm from North Carolina, and I did the organic farm school in 2012. And in 2012, when it was still up at Green Bank, I learned how special Whidbey is and how great the community is. And once I finished the program, I worked on a farm down in Oregon for a year just to get some more experience. And then when came time to figure out where we wanted to settle, Whidbey was at the top of the list. And I always felt that if I could find some land somewhere and get established, that we'd have an easier time getting buy-in from the community as long as we did things the right way. And that has obviously been the case. I'm fortunate enough to be able to say, but one thing that I think in our attempt to try to be community members, once we settled here and we got to know more people, and we were asking people to basically have an arrangement with us where we would supply food in exchange for money, so that we were a sustainable business. But I never wanted to just be like a taker where we just like moved to this place where we didn't know anybody and we just expected people to just give us all their money and we would be rich. And nobody's getting rich from so one thing that I think is important, if you have the ability to do it, is to somehow get back to where you're living, and you're asking for these people to support you. And I do think it does feel good, just selfishly, to be able to get back in a way, but it also does help the community which you are actively living in and trying to be a good citizen. And I do think that it goes both ways. I think it pays benefits from a business standpoint. And then you're also sort of building some equity within the community, and they know that you built this relationship and people can trust you as a human to trust your business too. And I do think, especially here on Whidbey, because for better or worse, many of us are not from here, and a lot of retirees, especially on this end of the island, and second homeowners and stuff like that. So it's incumbent upon the people that live here full time who are just trying to make a life for themselves to be active citizens and do as many good things as you are able to do. And there's only so many hours in the day to be on boards or volunteer or donate money and things like that. But I do think if we're just talking selfishly from a business standpoint, that it is helpful from a community building standpoint. And then also the main purpose is you're giving back and you're doing things to help collectively support the community.
That's like how you keep your soil alive. You're keeping the thing that also grows you personally as a person alive. It's the network of people you're also connected to.
Well, I want to say that the struggle is real. Isolating oneself. I was kind of guilty of it this year. I mean, I was so hyper focused and mission driven. Thinking that I had to do everything, and that I sometimes would kind of come up for air and be like, whoa, where am I? Like, now, which is, kind of counterintuitive, I mean, because I got into this to be of service, to know my community, to nourish my community, and to do that, I need to know it. And so I'm very grateful for Kirsten because, she was kind of the level-headed one would bring me back in and like, hey, like, you need to do hard stops, or we need to go do this, or like, hey, we got invited over here, where I was like, but I got one more thing to do. And so that's and then of course, we got a dog this season. So she kind of helped keep me in check too, because she'd come up to me after I'd ignore her for a while and be like, hey,
Yeah.
I'm here.
I had a friend some years ago who suffered from really severe anxiety. It's just like a human note of making friends. And I gave him advice that I really needed to take myself at the time. But I was like, I have my wisdom, and I'm just gonna say something to you that makes it sound like I know what I'm talking about, but I also really bad at doing it. But it's true still today. And he was in a new workplace, and he was having a hard time crossing the social barrier. He a lot of people that were there had been there for a long time. And he's like, we eats lunch together, and I feel so on the outside, and I haven't been invited in, and I'm having the only thing that I could think to say was just take a seat at the table. Just sit down at the table. Pull up a chair and sit down and start talking to somebody. And show up as you. Say the weirdest shit. Or or just listen, be present, make eye contact. But I think that that's true in any given situation where you're trying to build community. How many friends I've made on Whidbey because I've seen somebody speak in a panel and I thought they were really cool. And then I saw them at a gas station and flagged down. And then window wouldn't roll down. So I just stood outside awkwardly waiting because that's how serious I was about making that connection. That's my story. But it's just you're really cool and your energy is great and how would you perceive that? Yeah, I'm gonna take a seat at the table and connect with you and whether you're a farmer or you're not, I think that's pretty intelligent to take around building the community. But as a farmer, sometimes you're only gonna get that gas station moment because you are so head to the ground. And take it. Run after somebody in their car.
It's happened to me. I've done that. Yeah. Yeah. I love what you said about just take a seat at the table. One of my favorite quotes for community building, and that makes it seem like it's a bigger, more noble thing than it is. It's really we need to talk to people, right? And And it is noble, you know, getting to know your neighbor, talking to the person that you are sharing space with, acknowledging someone and their personhood, right? But the quote is to make a friend or to get to know someone, you just have to physically put yourself in that physical space. And that has like gotten me out of the door and out of my car more times than I'd like to admit, of like just the anxiety and the buildup of like, if I show up, is it really like meant for me to be there? Like,
Rejected.
yeah. Will I
All
fit
of our
in?
worst fears.
Yes, will I be rejected? Basically, it's like, well, I'm gonna find out, you know. And I've yet to prove that fear right. It's always turned into an interaction or a connection or a story I didn't know that I needed. So it's kind of like this, like maybe trick yourself into like this could be a fun adventure. You know. Some other advice that literally changed my life, and maybe this speaks to my generation and how chronically online we are, but it was like you need to look at a map and you need to look at areas on that map where people are doing things that you're interested in doing. Like maybe I want to learn how to cycle or ride on some gravel trails. Okay, I'm going to figure out where people are doing that and I'm just going to show up. Or maybe I really like playing board games and maybe no one else I know in my circle already plays board games. Okay, I'm going to go to literally a cafe where sit down and they have an open board game night, that sort of thing. And I'm sure like lots of you also have tips and tricks like that, but it's those little things of like we aren't islands. This came up in the past panel. No one's on an island. No one's an island. We live on an island. So how we make that work is by building our bridges of connection with each other. And it can be uncomfortable too. You will learn a lot of ugly things about yourself and a lot of uncomfortable things about people that you share space with. But as Mr. Rogers said, and this is the last quote I'm going to throw out into the air. Any feeling is mentionable and anything mentionable is manageable. Kind of give that uncomfortability and those hard things air, and I'm sure that there's a solution just by acknowledging them, right?
I do want to say too, you mentioned like being online, social media, obviously, like I think everybody has a complicated relationship with that thing. And the balance is rarely perfect, but I will say we have found that a tool in numerous ways this year to build community beyond the island. Really cool opportunities have come out of that, really cool connections have come out of that, really cool information sharing has come out of that. And I think like if you're like putting positive things out into that space, and even like the seat at the table thing, like we're looking to talk to other farmers about this, and like this is the problem we're having, and can anybody like interface with us? And like how many Skagit farmers have reached out to us and been like, man, this was like 4 years of whatever kind of labor in this way to like mitigate that pest issue. And like there is information out there, people who are also hungry to connect, and it can be a positive space in, you know, like all things in moderation.
Right.
And it can be a tool for analysts too. I mean, like we were invited to collaborate with other people and stuff this year just because.
Yeah, make it a thing that can be toxic, but not toxic. Yeah, make it work for you. Yeah.
One other thing that I would say, I think that a lot of what we do, what people in the room are presumably interested in, is kind of like anathema to a lot of like modern society, especially how the US is structured, right? Like there's this weird like life escalator that everyone expects you to be on, right? Like, it can be, oh, you graduate from high school and you go to college and you marry and have kids and they have kids, and like, it's, you know, like, and capitalism is a lot of that way, right? But like, growth, a quote that I have always wondered,
Yes.
growth for the sake of growth is the philosophy of the cancer cell, right? Like, if you are trying to grow, which growth is good, right? They'll grow things. Why are you growing that, right? Like if your goal isn't to have a fully self-sustaining farming business, which is a huge stretch goal, by the way. Yeah, that's a whole other panel. It's okay if the community that you want to support with your endeavor is your cul-de-sac. Right? Like Whidbey's already a small community, it's already a small island, but if your dream is just to like have enough chickens to make enough eggs for everyone in your neighborhood to ship eggs from you and not the grocery store, that's enough. If that's enough for you, and to like recognize that, right? That is your service, because you're filling a need that will alleviate needs, right? So whatever your goals are, they're good because they're your goals, and you don't have to match what your neighbors are doing. You don't have to match what you see on social media, which often, but not always, only shows us the perfectly needed beds, all of the successes, huge piles of perfect vegetables, like whatever it is, and to be okay with that, right? And to recognize that you're still serving your community, even if you aren't making like the grandest gestures or whatever, because anything that strengthens what's around you strengthens you. So
Yeah, and it's not authentic, right, outside of your capacity, yeah. This is such a rich conversation. Thank you all for sharing insight and expertise. This is the part I love. We're going to open it up to the audience, and if you heard something throughout our folks sharing that really resonated with you, feel free to share or just ask them questions. So this is where I pass the mic. Oh, Jennifer.
No, I really do. I would like to hear more about who is doing regenerative farming on Whidbey Island, because it seems like in my head, it could just be in my head, that you need a lot of land to be able to do it. And when you're talking about community, I'm thinking community is the way that we can figure out regenerative farming best on Whidbey Island. So that's just where my head is. I like that. Does anybody want to talk about that?
I definitely don't think that you have to have a lot of land to be practicing regenerative methods. I think you do it on the smallest scale, really. There's like so many different practices that can go into that. Again, it's not like organic where like there's a standard.
Yeah.
It is the concentrated input towards improving soil health and ecological diversity above all else. And you can do that in your backyard, and you can do that on 10 acres, and you can do that on 600 acres. It's gonna look different in each space, but I think that there are a lot of farmers on the island who in their own ways are incorporating different versions of regenerative practice, whether that's being no-till, low-till, cover cropping, rotational grazing. There's a lot of that happening here.
Nutritional.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay.
I kind of think of it on our farm as trying to close the loop wherever we can.
Yeah.
Like whatever you can do to reduce outside input, regardless of what that input is, but especially if it's like fossil based, right? And to recognize that like human beings at this point as a species have overpopulated the earth. So we are by nature an extractive species, right? And so if you think about other times when nature gets out of balance, there's like, right, the tipping points. And so those people, in my opinion, who are engaging in regenerative practices, whatever that means for the place on the earth that they are attempting to right that balance without like catastrophic level event, right? They're trying to make Earth, and like even if it's just their tiny little spot, more supportive of a balanced ecosystem that includes humans as we are, but that like actively, consciously includes humans as a part of that cycle, as opposed to outside of that cycle and trying to like, you are never going to succeed in subduing Mother Nature. Like it's just, she will bounce back at some point. Like she's gonna jump back up and like clock you if you're not careful. So like working with her is kind of what like regenerative ag means to me, right? Is to like maintain those systems outside of the more traditional like tillage and like pesticide, herbicide, so that, you know, like on our farm, we work really hard to maintain. We're not certified organic or anything like that, but like basically we're trying to maintain an ecosystem where those pressures of pests and disease and whatnot are limited simply by the way we're doing things, right? And I think that's what regenerative ag is in a lot of ways, is to lessen the input while encouraging benefit for everything. Okay.
Regenerative agriculture also, similarly to organic, which it's interesting how linked they are, but are kind of different paths, is a response to the traditional model of a monoculture, maybe in the Midwest, of like I have 500 acres and all of it is corn. Right? And using chemical fertilizers and things like that. And I think one of the largest examples that I know of on Whidbey Island, farm that is like professingly using regenerative practice is Bell's Farm. And Kyle of Bell's did an interview. This video is up on our YouTube page about how that model evolved. And initially they wanted to be a completely organic farm, using only organic practices, but the organic fertilizer that he would need to make that happen would put him in debt, basically bankrupt, and the system would collapse pretty much. And so his solution is to like, well, and so then we brought in cows because they're going to fertilize, and you know we can rotate them, and they're also just the balance of heavy livestock walking and being present on the land is what a lot of grasslands have. That's how they've evolved, and why you have like such rich topsoil is that they have herbivores, large herbivores in that area, and improving the soil as it goes. So it's truly like, it's a microcosm of where you are, like Kirsten. I'm just regurgitating. But it really works if you are going at your own capacity, like I said, and doing the practice that works well for you. Like it's great to do it on a large scale, but it's also super personal to the person. Great question.
The keynote speaker at the conference mentioned this week. I'm gonna paraphrase, but like in synopsizing what she talked about was like essentially like regenerative changes to land management is just like making room for Mother Nature to do what she knows how to do. Like her body of life knows how to do, has to take care of it. And we're having to come from a very far away place in a lot of cases because we were working so much against nature to get back to that place of their systems being intact enough to take care of itself. And that like even economically does work in our favor because we're having to put less inputs from off farm on farm.
I noticed a question in front.
Yeah, actually, this is a question for you guys. I know that for the co-op, you guys require insurance, right? Can you guys talk about some of the business insurance policies that you've obtained, or maybe accounting or an accountant that you like or could recommend, or some of the practices that you found on the business side of the house?
So I can talk farmers markets, right? There's multiple types of insurance that you have to consider. And like the place to start would be like, if you're farming, start with whoever has like your like home policy or that, like start with whoever you already have insurance with, because a lot of times insurance companies work like they have partnerships with other insurances that manage different types of policies that they don't necessarily cover, like they direct you in the right direction. But the world of insurance changed the face of farmers markets a lot, not too long ago, which is that the farmers markets in Washington, most of them are members of the Washington State Farmers Market Association. And you are required as a market to carry insurance for liability purposes. So if someone comes to the market and they're wandering around and they trip and fall and break their arm, you have liability insurance to cover any market. But it gets a lot more complicated because every individual and like most municipalities, right, like depending on who, like Oak Harbor, for example, operates on school district property within the city. So we have to provide insurance proof to the school district as opposed to Cooperative, which operates on town property. So that insurance proof goes to the town because they basically, people want to, right, CYA, like you want to, the whole chain all the way up, whoever could be liable if something happens, has to be covered. And so because you have a lot of other, like every booth is a different business, right? So you have to have your business license, you have to have all these things. But the way that, because I, as in a position of board member, I spend a certain amount of time talking to our insurance agent. If the person is outside of your booth and falls down, that's the market's insurance policy. If they trip over your tent stake and fall down in your booth, that's your insurance policy. So our insurance requires us to require our vendors insurance. And that was, I mean, I understand why, but it's purely liability at the market. It has nothing to do with product. If you have a farm stand on, like there's a lot of farm stands, little driveway into the farm, right of the driveway farm stands all over the island. Most people assume that their homeowners insurance or their whatever they've got covers them in the case that something happens. That's not true. If you have people coming onto your property for a commercial purpose, you have to have a completely separate type of insurance.
Same thing as using your car, whether it's using your personal vehicle to transport your goods somewhere. Right. You need to tell your car insurance, because if you have your market goods in your car, that's commercial use. If you get in an accident, even if it's somebody hitting you, your insurance can go, you were using me for commercial purposes, which we didn't cover, so you're on your own.
Correct.
And it's the same thing with your homeowners.
So insurance is important and also so there's like, if you are creating a product that has really high product liability, right? So it's often like anything that goes on the body is often a lot, and also technically in the body. We, for example, spent years trying to find an insurance that would cover leafy greens, because so many of the massive foodborne illness outbreaks occur in leafy greens, and they are exclusively coming from massive operations that are like congregating who knows how many farms, machinery that doesn't get cleaned, processing places that don't get cleaned, like whatever it is. That insurance is just like, nope, we're not going to cover it, like full stop, period. And it doesn't matter if all you're selling is maybe 3 bags of spinach a week for like a month. Like it doesn't matter. They're not going to cover it. So when you try and like make sure that you're protected to do the thing that you want, you get into very murky territory very quickly. And as with everything, it's better to just be upfront. Be like, these are the things I want to do. What can I reasonably do the pricing? Right? Like you can get relatively inexpensive farmers market liability insurance through the same company that insures the farmers markets, actually. Like the one that WSFMA works with is called Campbell Risk Management. They're based out of, I think, Ohio. They almost exclusively do just that type of insurance, right? You tell them what you have, you tell them what coverage you need, it's very basic. And most vendors of not particularly high risk products can get insurance for $300-ish a year, like, so yeah, that's where I would say we'd start, be like, talk to whoever you already have insurance with. Be like, this is the kind of thing that I'm interested in pursuing. Who do you have that I can talk to about that? And then you find out, because there may be things that you really want to do that I think are right? Like there's, because federal regulations versus state regulations, like it's a whole can of worms, but it is an important one to be aware of, because many people don't, like, you know, you sign up for insurance, you don't know things, and all of a sudden something happens and now we're in big trouble. So I don't know if that was actually helpful. That's super helpful.
Can you share
Yeah, so if you haven't seen it, you're welcome to look at it. This is my copy though, if you can't have it. They hand these out, I think you can get them at the extension in Cooperative, or you can communicate with them. This is the 2019 handbook for small and direct marketing farms, regulations and strategies for farm and food businesses. This is put out by the WSDA Regional Markets Program. It is pretty exhaustive of things that you might be interested in doing and what the like legal requirements in the state of Washington are for them. Really good, like, you know, direct marketing strategies, selling to restaurants, right? Put back here, regulations for specific products, selling eggs, right? It is a very helpful jumping off point, like whatever your specific thing is that you're interested in or how you're interested in doing it. 2019 is pretty out of date. The whole pandemic ago. I have slightly different information because the woman who is like the lead of the regional markets program or WSDA currently, I was in a meeting with her not too long ago. They are rewriting this. Do not quote us on this. She's very bad. They were hoping to have the updated one out sometime next year. Sometime, hopefully. But she's basically rewriting the whole thing herself with a little bit of it. So her name is Nisha. You can, I mean, I think you can. So, but she's super approachable. I would start here, and then if you have questions, because again, you're doing now, and then reach out to her to, okay, I read through all that. Is there anything new that you know is coming out? Which is extremely helpful. It's like her whole job to help small regional market opportunities. And she has a small office of she works with. I don't know what any of them do. I forgot that part of the call, but their whole thing is like helping people like us do things. We above board, like, right, which farmers don't always do. So, but yeah, so if you want to look at this,
something I want to push on. Obviously, what you guys are doing or hoping to do, it's a lot of work and it's really hard. But you're not in it alone. I mean, we have a whole panel here of people who are in it and who are willing to spend a couple of their hours today with us to just share their experience. But there's so many organizations as well. Conservation District has a bunch of programs. WSU, there's an extension office in Coopville. They have a bunch of programs. TILS, and then even the big formal organizations that might sound scary. Island County, WSDA, USDA, all of those. No one is out here trying to get you.
Yeah.
They want you to do what you're doing and they want you to do it really well. And so they have so many programs and resources to make it happen. So use them. talk to, you know, go up to a farmer that you're like a fan of, either at their farm stand or at a market. Say, hi, can I ask you some questions? The vast majority of them will be like, yeah, because they remember what it was like to start out and they want to help you do that as well. And then we also have a bunch of workshops coming up. The part 2 of this is focused on cottage food permitting. If you want to do any value-added stuff, talking about licensing and all of this stuff, you need that. In January, we have social media ones. The flyers for you are back there. There's a bunch of recorded stuff. You guys have stuff on your website. There's a whole bunch of resources. So don't do it by yourself. That you're just banging your head against the wall for no reason. Use the resources that exist. And that it'll go a lot better for you.
Yeah. I will add, if you are at all concerned about getting yourself in trouble, that you want to do, look for the agencies that are non-regulated.
That's the conservation district.
That's the conservation. You can ask them more questions than you can ask them.
All
Not
the rules.
reporting.
We know what USDA will want and WSDA. We won't report you. And we also will help you write a farm plan. If you have an issue with drainage or want to know if you can get funding for a specific project you want to put out on your land, or want to get involved with, if you don't have land and you want to get involved with this type of community, come to us and we'll help you write that plan. We'll look at what's going on and try to figure out a resource concern that's at play. By the way, it's all free. We're funded by your tax dollars. So please use us. And we have a whole video library, like Sammy said. We are running, I think we're running out of time.
Do we want to give Jennifer a sec to talk about what she came working up fast?
Yeah. Sure.
I'll take long.
Please, feel free if you're running late.
But
Please.
or stick around and chat.
Yeah. Would you share that?
So I'm on a couple boards.
Yes.
One is the Conservation District and one is Bayview Farmers Market. And with the Bayview Farmers Market and the Conservation District, very interested in supporting new farmers to have more farmers at the farmers market. Because it's not a craft market, it's a farmers market that needs to represent farmers. And so any farmers who are interested in working at the Bayview Farmers Market, that you can sign up to actually be a farmer at the Bayview Farmers Market. And the other thing that we're going to do is we're going to have a single booth that anybody can come in, at least try what is it like to be at a farmer's market and actually use a booth. And all you have to do is pay the 5% at the end of the day of what you made that supports the farmer's market, but you don't have to pay the entry fee to be on, be a member. There's a lot of the things that you don't have to do. You can actually just come and be in your 10 by 10 booth, which will provide the booth. You have to provide your own tables and stuff, but
Insurance? You'll have to start working on that.
That's not working on that.
That was my question.
I'm just gonna have, so I've already sent a note to them about the insurance. And so I don't know the answer to that question, but definitely that's a great question for Gabby. So just go to BayviewFarmersMarket.org, I think it is. Or you can go to Bayview Farmers Market, all one word, @gmail.com, and you'll get in touch with Gabby.
Great. Thank you, Jennifer. Yeah, the Bayview Market is awesome. Where's the position of the farm? Of the booth? Like, where is it located? Is it a great spot?
That's been decided. Yeah.
Oh, it's a great spot.
Yes. Well, the thing about it is that they'll want to make sure that whatever farmers come, that the farmers that actually use the booth, especially if we have rotating farmers, that will create a little team of who are the rotating farmers and let the rotating farmers decide what's best for the rotating farmers to come and do. So, yeah.
So exciting. That was the inspiration for this workshop. We wanted to provide that kind of booth and quickly ran into roadblocks. And so it's amazing that
Full Cycle Farm is on Full Cycle Farm. Gabby and myself have been trying to kind of tossing this idea around and come up with what we can do to support getting more farmers at the farmers.
Well, with that, 5 minutes over, I want to just thank our panelists. Taking 2 hours out of your Saturday to work is really wonderful. And this is what I said before our workshop. Even though we're in the off season, farmers are still working, and your time is very valuable. So let's have a round of applause.